Hey guys, I just wanted to jump in here before we start the show to tell you a bit about this project that I'm really excited about called Sync. I'm one of the co-creators of this 5th edition sourcebook module, subclasses, magic item tattoos, dungeons. It's basically bringing together the worlds of American traditional tattoo art from Sam Rusk, an incredible tattoo artist within the TTRPG industry, and pirates. Who doesn't love pirates? What's awesome is that you can go to get.synkrpg.com right now to reserve a $1 pin called the Storm in a Bottle pin. It's this really cool pin of a ship in a bottle with a glittery, stormy background. Normally this thing would retail at right around $15, $20, and you can get it for $1 if you go forward with the Kickstarter campaign with your $1 pledge in this pre-launch campaign. So make sure you go to get.synkrpg.com right now to get your exclusive pin. I'm really excited about this Kickstarter in September, so I really hope you guys follow along, and let's get to the rest of the show.
5 days before Halloween, was like, okay, let's do Pokemon. That's great. I gotta pick up the pace because I don't have a full body. I have a full body penguin costume, which is what part of my Twitter avatar is. That's full body penguin costume. I actually did that for Halloween. I think maybe last year. I keep dressing up as
I did check.
Big. Was it really?
2 years in a row, you were. I think you were both the Batman or Batgirl and the Penguin. But you were like a literal penguin. Yeah.
That's right. I was a literal penguin. You've got a better read on my life right now than I do. That's incredible.
Welcome back to Athletics Check. My name is Johnny Stanton. This is Travis Reeves. We're going to talk about a sports guy who likes nerd stuff today.
Hey, sometimes that's like the whole bit.
Yeah, but sometimes we talk about nerds who like sports.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't like sports. We haven't had one of those yet, but we will.
Listen, if one of you comes on this podcast, you better start liking sports.
I think everybody has a relationship with sports, though. Like, that's kind of the idea about the show, is that everybody, you know, we live in a society. We live in.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yet again. Putting cakes into the pod.
I know. I'm the worst. I'm talking to Travis all the time about it.
Save it for Crossfire.
No, we live in the United States of America, in which sports is a huge part of our world, and everybody has a relationship, whether it's positive or negative. And
or neutral.
Or neutral. Some people are very neutral about sports.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk to people about like sometimes a negative relationship with sports, and kind of see how they got to that position and see if I can kind of win them back.
Wow.
Do you think I can do it?
So you're saying in this, you are assuming the responsibility of being the representative of sports. You're on the tourism board of sports saying, hey, come to sports.
Yeah.
You're going to like it here.
I mean, it's been a good year for sports.
It has been a good year for sports.
We got all the Swifties.
They're in, baby!
They're in. First off, our guest for today, Joshua Brisco, is a huge sports fan. I do want to say, we recorded this in like December or something, maybe early January. He is a talk show radio host for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he is a happy man.
Interesting.
But we didn't get to talk about the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl because this happened, I think, before the playoffs even started.
Yeah. As they were limping into the 5 seed or whatever it were.
Yeah. No, they
10-6 record.
They had like one of the toughest paths to the Super Bowl of all time.
Wow.
If you're a fan or if you're a member of one of the other NFL teams, which is, you know, like 99% of the people who are fans, you have to be really scared about the Chiefs moving forward.
Lock your doors.
Lock your doors. The Chiefs are coming for you because this was probably the year to beat them, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Patrick Mahomes is good. He's good at football.
Yeah.
But you know who's also good at football, because I'm really
Josh?
good. Josh, I think. No, he is. He'll tell you firsthand that he didn't go very far with football, but he loves football. He's good at talking about football.
Right on.
A lot better than I am.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so this is not a launching pad into your commentating career, you don't think?
I mean, that'd be cool. I don't think that I'd be necessarily very good at commentating. I don't know enough guys.
Interesting.
I think relationships.
You don't think
and
they have a chart? I've always wondered, do they have a chart?
They definitely have a chart.
Okay.
I don't think I've never been very good at like recognizing who has the ball at any given moment. Like that's all like crap.
That's why you played offense.
That's why I played offense. Yes, but I still am supposed to be able to. One of the hardest things,
you
know, as a college quarterback,
sure,
was being able to recognize.
I have the ball.
I have the ball. It's crazy. No, one of the hardest things personally was that I was never very good at being able to remember what players wore what numbers. Because when you're in the NFL, there are rules that determine what number you can wear. And when I'm playing fullback, I can look in the backfield and say, okay, number 53 is probably a linebacker, or number 42 is probably a linebacker. Oh, number 99 on the edge, that's an edge rusher. That's not a linebacker who's looking up to blitz. When you're in college, there's no rules for that. And I was just never very good at like trying to memorize the other team's like starting lineup based on their numbers. That I wasn't very good at recognizing the blitz, but I think purely because of that, I wasn't a very good quarterback. Let's be clear, Travis. There's a reason I didn't play professional.
We're going down a road here. Look, we like you.
Thanks,
all
man.
right? You're valid.
Yeah, I need this.
Yeah,
Keep going.
You juked the ever loving.
Piss out of Frank.
Yeah, Frank behind the camera.
Frank behind the camera.
Oh yeah.
And
thanks, Frank.
And me.
You made me feel a lot better.
You needed the win that day.
Yeah. We a couple of years ago we got to get on the field and throw the ball around
for my 30th birthday.
Was it for your 30th?
That was my 30th.
I didn't
birthday.
even remember that.
Yeah, I decided that then since I had turned 30, it was now time to take up rec sports.
Yeah,
and
it didn't happen.
No, and that's a whole other story. But Johnny was kind enough to take me and my roommates, one of which is Frank behind the camera, through a mini camp down in Orange County, where he absolutely embarrassed us.
The point wasn't to embarrass you, but there was one point I'm like, you guys want to try to pull my flag or whatever?
We're like, yeah, of course. I've never been more scared in my fucking life. NFL, like professional athleticism barreling down. It feels like you're going to get hit by a car. Do I look like somebody
that's going to hurt you though?
Yeah, you're huge.
I'm large. I like
if
to think
you're going fast enough.
I like to think about myself as a gentle giant.
Sure, so are moose, but you're still not supposed to fuck with them.
On that note, let's introduce radio host and podcast host extraordinaire Joshua Brisco. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Josh. Thanks for hopping on Athletics Check.
Thank you for having me. I am very excited to be here. I'm very excited about your entire existence as a person, and I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Thanks so much. I'm stoked to have you on here because you are one of the very few people in like the Twitter sphere, X now, I guess, the whole internet really, that I think is so willing to talk about your nerddom while being like mainly sports. And I'm like, I feel like I've gotten pretty close to kind of half and half now. People definitely were like, okay, he's a football player. Oh, now he's a nerd. And now I'm kind of living way more in the nerd space. But I think as far as I know, you kind of bring that kind of nerd vibe to the Kansas City area, right?
Yeah, it's something that I think, I hopefully came by honestly, that for whatever my weird little interests were that always coincided with me loving sports growing up and all the way through all of the radio and podcasting and video and all of the things that I've done on the sports side now, it would be absolutely impossible for me not to also end up accidentally talking about Pokemon, like when other people aren't necessarily wanting to hear me talk about Pokemon. So yeah, it's always kind of been who I am, and I've been lucky enough to have other people around me who end up either tolerating it or being there with me. And I've had some good opportunities with some of the stuff I've done to just sort of embrace both of those things, and it's awesome because it's authentic, which I think both of us share.
Yeah, I think you've probably developed a very similar skill to me, which is determining who is able to talk to you about this. Like, not everybody. Some people will humor you, which is great. Those people are lovely, blessings on this earth. Some people you just like, okay, this isn't the kind of person I'm going to talk. I'm not going to talk to my football coach about Dungeons and Dragons or about Pokemon or something. But then there are the people who are in between where like, you really got to read it and kind of get the vibe of like, okay, are they responding in a way that like I'm going to continue talking about that? Is it going to get to the point where I'm actually going to invite them to the D&D table? Usually not, but I'm always hoping. But yeah, like are there people within your world that you feel like you've definitely been able to make that connection with?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll shout out my two producers, co-hosts, friends of a show that I used to do called Almost Entirely Sports. It was the name of the show. We did it at nights on 810, which I'm still on 810, but the night show back in the day, that's where it kind of started. and Rudy Salazar and Beards McFly. His real name is not Beards McFly, but he was Beards McFly to us. So shout outs to both of them for being. It's a hell of a name. Two people who in our weird little radio sphere, we all figured out by, again, it's Pokemon or other video games or the Marvel Cinematic Universe or whatever it is.
Yep.
We all had different inflection points of our nerddom, and then we all united over sports and found that there was space for that. And so for that show, that was just kind of like what we doubled down on by and large. Like, I love football. I love talking about the Chiefs. I like other sports and I like the NFL altogether, but Chiefs talk on a regular basis is like the bread and butter on the sports side. So we would frequently do like a couple hours of, guests that are talking about the sports things and us monologuing and doing all of our day-to-day conversations. And sometimes in the last hour of the show when 9 p.m. struck and we thought, all right, we're safe. This one's for the weirdos. then we
this
would
is the after hours show.
It was almost entirely sports after dark. And that's when we talked about Game of Thrones as it was coming out or whatever. Yeah, we would do our movie reviews and things like that. And so the two of them are certainly the first two people that jumped to mind, because that was sort of building that entire idea up for ourselves and kind of figuring out that like, oh, that's something we can do. And then we found people who also loved that and loved the entirety of the show in that way.
Yeah.
And those people I also owe a tremendous amount of gratitude towards, because they proved to me that there are people out there for stuff like this.
Yeah, it was the wildest thing for me to learn that this weird Venn diagram that I'm at the middle of is a lot wider than I thought. Yeah. It all started when I first got signed by the Cleveland Browns, and people wanted to know like a fact that nobody else knew about me. Like, this is like a Twitter back and forth. I'm like, oh, I'm a big Dungeons and Dragons fan. I figured this is the time to reveal it. Yes. I have people who are like, like excited that I'm on this team, and like so many people respond like, oh my God, we have a D&D nerd on the Browns. That's crazy. And just be able to interact with those people, I just kind of grow that knowledge. Like, it really became something that I dove into, and it sounds like you were able to do that with AE, all about sports or everything. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Almost entirely sports.
I completely butchered that.
That's okay. Lots of people do.
Entirely
you just
sports.
Learned it. So yeah. AES is always easy. But yeah, absolutely. And because that discovery process is the coolest thing, because you do like feel like you're a little bit like, all right, I'm in an empty room and I like sports and also nerdy things, and you just think it's gonna echo forever, right? And then like other people start popping, like
masses just start like huddling. Yeah,
me too. And,
I haven't had anybody to talk about this with. Yeah,
right. That's also part of it. Is like people there is I'm gonna get real deep real quick into the show. Please. Where we end up, but like there is something on a very human level. There is something so similar about all of the things that nerd culture embraces and is about fundamentally, and sports culture. But
100%.
Sports culture is often like just behind the gate of like dumbbells and stuff. And a lot of times, especially if you grow up a sports fan, your parents are sports fans, and those are the people you look up to and everything, everything looks and feels different at first from, nerd side, sports side. But in reality, there is something that is like, it is communal. It is being a part of a team. It is caring about the same stuff. It is talking about these things you're passionate about that are on some level, on a surface level, aren't that deep. It's not politics or world hunger or whatever. But it's actually, I think if you go like maybe even deeper than that, it is the core engine of being a human being. Like, it's a place to connect and stuff to care about. And so I think that the people that are feeling that from so many different places, and everybody's got a multitude of, I like sports and also these movies or whatever, but it's always in there. But this specific intersection has been very rewarding.
Yeah, it's the whole like basis for what the show is, that people like talking about the things they don't normally get to talk about. And they like finding the people that enjoy that same thing. That's why when people talk to me who are in like the nerd community, like, oh, sorry, I don't know a whole lot about sports. Or when people in like the sports community, like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know a whole lot about Dungeons and Dragons. Well, like you have tons within yourself. There are TV shows and books and all this different pieces of media and hobbies that you could talk for hours about. And that's what I like to hear. I don't need to share your interest to be able to be interested in you talking about it. Like get it. Like the whole idea is like, people being nerdy about things is just people being passionate about things. And when people are passionate about things, that's what makes me want to listen. That's what makes what makes a good interview. That's what makes a good like story. And that's what I love to be able to hear.
You could not be more on the money there, because that sensation in particular of I am guilty of this at times. I shouldn't be guilty of it, and at times like today I'm excited to just embrace exactly that, the fun and the passion that comes out of talking about the things you don't usually get to talk about. I mean, there's always good stuff with the things you still enjoy and talk about often, but it is those conversations when you realize that someone else also has a strong, far and away favorite Wes Anderson movie, and you're like, oh well, I'm sorry, I talked about the Chiefs earlier. There are podcasts if you want to listen what I think about the receiver. It's all, it's over there, right? That's been covered. But let's talk about something.
Let's dive in.
You dive, because you also learn about the other person that way too. Like, what are you, like I said, what are you passionate about? That's the best way to get to know somebody, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll definitely be getting into the Wes Anderson stuff. Don't worry.
Yeah, all right. I thought maybe I could plant that. I wasn't sure.
One thing I'd love to be able to find out, and I ask every guest this question, is I think within us, obviously there are multitudes, just like we were saying, there is a large like mixture, and there's no way to really like quantify that. But if you were to quantify it, if you were to say, okay, I'm this much nerd and I'm this much jock, and I know jock is kind of like not exactly been co-opted in the same way that nerd culture has been. Jock kind of like, oh, well, he's like a high school football player who like beats up kids. No, like Jock is like sports personalities, and just your enjoyment of sports and athleticism and working out and fitness and whatever, anything within that whole world of physicality. What would you say your ratio between nerddom and jock is?
It's a tremendous question that plays into something else I was thinking about earlier, because I wasn't sure where this was going to end up going.
Yeah.
Where I think I still have a little bit of nerddom imposter syndrome, which is funny if you like can see the background of like, how much of the nerdy stuff I have. Like that's a porg up there. And like Star Wars is a good example of this. There are so many people that know so much more about Star Wars than I do, but I loved it when I was growing up and I still love it now. But like, so I think that's also partially sports' fault. I will answer your question. I'm sorry for the tangent. But like, it's partially sports' fault because sports is about, I know more than you and I will debate you into the ground. And
you're a radio host. Yes, of course. That's what. Yeah,
and I don't want that to be how it is, but oftentimes it's how it is, and so I try to break free of that. But that's still in the back of my head somewhere. So I think my life is 75 sports, 25% nerd stuff, but my free time might be 80% nerd stuff right now. Because and that's hard to kind of even quantify, because I will still watch sports because I want to watch sports, but like if I get to say that watching the Chiefs every week is a part of my job, I am very glad to be able to say that. That is a cool sentence.
Yes.
But also it's different. So I would say if I'll split the difference, and I might be 60-40 right now, where certainly my life revolves around sports things in the way that that it is when it's your job, as you would know, on a better level. But I think that my soul is pretty close to 50-50.
Yeah, I love it. And 50-50 I think is a great place to be, especially with like the kind of worlds that we're in. Like you can't commit everything to the nerd culture, because that's like not necessarily like what can support yourself, or like, there are people who dive a little bit too far into it. Now, like, not judgment, but it's like there are some people who, need a little bit more variety and diversity in their life. And I think that's what sports and nerd stuff has been able to do for us, because it allows you to be able to divert your attention in a lot of different ways rather than hyper focusing on one thing.
And then you have everything else that fills in the gaps. Like, I don't know where I can be a nerd about music stuff, but I don't know if that music in general is nerd culture, right? Like, I just, as you say there, like having a wide spread of what you as a person encompasses, I think is a great thing. Yeah,
absolutely. You mentioned Wes Anderson earlier, and I wanted to be able to dive in a little bit into that. I do know that some of your favorites are Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Darjeeling Limited. I want to hear you nerd out a little bit about Wes Anderson.
Yeah, it feels like you're doing like the Nardwuar thing or like Hot Ones or whatever. Where it's like,
what?
I don't know.
I've never heard of them.
I do love both of those movies very, very much, but I don't feel like I talk about the Darjeeling Limited out in public that often. I tell all my friends about it. So before French Dispatch came out, me and Renee is my wife's name, but she wasn't my wife at the time. We were engaged. All that. So, we'll
congratulations. You got married recently, as I did, about 10 months ago.
You know what, Johnny? Congratulations to you too.
Congratulations.
Because, congratulations. How about us?
I mean, I'm sure you get the same thing. Like, how long ago was yours? When was yours last year? May. Okay. Mine was in March, and I'm still getting congratulations on getting married 10 months later. So I'm like, I don't know when it's going to stop. I feel like 12 months after the fact is like a probably good around time. It's like, oh, well, it was a good year ago. Like, man, I had my anniversary, but
at that point, it's, hey, happy anniversary to you guys. Happy anniversary. 1 year, that's big. Which I think is good. People want to be nice about all of
Celebrate love. Who doesn't like to love? Yeah.
Exactly. Love. And however long that love has been going on, congratulations if you have love. Yeah, that's absolutely
And
perfect.
You love Wes Anderson. I want to hear you talk about it.
That's right. So, leading up to when The French Dispatch came out, we watched all of the Wes Anderson movies in the order that they were released, which was awesome. And if anyone has seen a few Wes Anderson movies and you're thinking about that, it is so cool to watch. I've never done that with like a director before. It is so cool to watch a director go through all of the little things that you see kind of come full circle later on, or just their tropes or their little follies, the stuff that makes them, and the stuff that's like, it's really weird that you keep putting this in like 4 movies out of 5.
It's like their own little inside joke that they think nobody's going to ever like see. But like there are hundreds of thousands of people who are like, no, this is my thing. And I saw every little bit of that.
And that has to be incredibly rewarding from the director's perspective. And it makes you feel so like, I'm a true fan.
Yeah.
So we watched all of those because I had seen several, and Fantastic Mr. Fox is probably my favorite movie, period. I've got like a theater-sized poster on a wall that you can't see over here. And my first tattoo, it was a pine cone on fire from Whack-Bat, which, as I say this, hold on, I'm going to
Please unpack it. Go.
I mean, my first tattoo is about a sport from a Wes Anderson movie.
If that doesn't encapsulate you, I don't know what does.
I don't either. I think you got it. Thanks for having me, Johnny. I'm gonna go lay down. I gotta think about it because that's crazy.
I need a nap.
Yeah, that didn't even dawn on me. But I love that movie.
I'll be completely honest. Wes Anderson movies, while loving the aesthetic, loving the vibe of them, I don't think I've seen any Wes Anderson movie all the way through. It's a huge blind spot for me.
Okay.
And there's so many movies I'm like, I need to see this movie, but then the list becomes so long, you're just overwhelmed by it, you know?
I'm also that guy. I watched Christmas Vacation for the first time this Christmas.
Not my favorite, I'll be honest. I don't love Christmas Vacation.
I enjoyed it. I hadn't seen it. That was it is a passionate endorsement for Christmas Vacation from several of the guys that I work with at 810 at the radio station. And so I was like, this is the year I'm gonna do it. I enjoyed it. And I love that people love it. You know, we're all
you don't need to trash it. Just absolutely. I think I'm somewhat similar. I don't dislike it. It's just not like it's not something I actively try to go seek out to watch Christmas time. Same thing, and it's tough because like some of the top, like I'd say like 2 out of the 3 top Christmas movies, or maybe 2 out of the top 5, Christmas Vacation and A Christmas Story, just not my thing. Yeah, I just don't love them.
Yeah, no, I'm with it. I get it. But weirdly, I do have love for It's a Wonderful Life because that's my mom's favorite, and so every year she's wrapping presents, and that's the thing that we're watching, right? So like so much of that is nostalgia and what you grew up enjoying and all of that. It's Christmas. That's what it's good for.
Yeah, for my parents, that was Miracle on 34th Street until we watched it again probably about like 6 years ago, and my parents were like, "This is kind of a sad one. This isn't like a happy Christmas movie." Like we didn't realize that when we were showing this to you when you were 4 years old.
And I was like, yeah, I have some baggage from age 4.
Yeah, there's a little bit of trauma.
More sense. That's fantastic.
This episode is brought to you by Hero Forge Custom Miniatures. Hero Forge is a free-to-use online character design application that basically means if you want to play a TTRPG and you want to have a 3D printed miniature of your character, Hero Forge is the place to go. You can print them at home, you can print them there, and they will ship them to you. They are always incredibly crafted and designed, and the print process is so exact. It's really impressive. Every time I get to see one of these miniatures. Their character design and customization is second to none. You get to 3D model your mini right there on screen, and you can see it as it real time. Updates to any kind of customization you want. Their facial customization is super impressive. Make sure that you go to heroforge.com to design your custom miniature today, and always check back regularly because they always come back with the coolest updates. They have new content every week, whether it's a new piece of clothing, a new race, whatever you can imagine, you can make it on heroforge.com. So go to heroforge.com today to start designing your own custom miniature. What's up, guys? It's Johnny again. I just wanted to thank you for listening and to encourage you to join our Patreon at patreon.com/athletics-check-pod. You'll have access to all of the little mini adventures that I run for each and every guest. This is about 10 to 15 minutes where I run them through a short TTRPG adventure. And for a lot of these people, especially the athletes, it's their first time running a game like this. So it's my honor to get to be their very first game master. And one of the best parts about being a paid member of the Athletics Check Podcast Patreon is that you get a chance of having your name shouted out in the middle of an episode. People like Andy Chang, Camilla, Francis Xavier Lally, John Guillaume, Jamie Bellin, Will, Zachary Loradich, Ladarius Smith, and Daniel Siuba. Thank you so much for being paid members. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. Let's get back to the action.
Anyway, Wes Anderson. Back to the
Wes Anderson Christmas movie. What would you do for a Wes Anderson Christmas movie?
I would be so excited. I would die. It's interesting. You say you haven't watched any of them the whole way through. Is there something you've seen chunks of, or you started and bailed?
You know what? I think, and I don't even think I bailed on it, but the Grand Budapest Hotel was one I was very excited to be able to see that I didn't end up getting to finish. And I only think I got like maybe half an hour in. There's a ton that the whole acting like roster that he has to pull from are all Oscar winners and like beloved actors. And I want to be able to see all of them. I just honestly, I don't know where to start. So please tell me, what order should I watch this in? Should I watch it in chronological order like you?
If you are genuinely interested in completely obliterating that blind spot, chronological order would be really cool. I loved it because of the evolution and everything, but like Bottle Rocket, which is where you would start, isn't the best movie. It's the first movie of a director I already knew I loved the end result of. So like I don't know how that would hit as the first thing out of the gate. The reason I love Darjeeling Limited, which is I think one of his probably like just by consensus lower rated movies. It's different in scope. It's much more narrow. The crux of that movie is three brothers on a train, and it's really about their relationship. Bottle Rocket is also about three guys and their relationship, and Darjeeling Limited is like the grown-up and distilled, fine-pointed version in a lot of ways of what Bottle Rocket did, and so it's very, very different than the rest of the Wes Anderson catalog, I think. But I love Darjeeling Limited. That one's very human in a series of movies. It's very whimsical. It's still whimsical, but it's very human. Asteroid City that just came out.
It's one that I really wanted to see. Yes,
dude, it's incredible. It is in amongst my favorite. I think right now, Mr. Fox, Darjeeling Limited, and Asteroid City are probably my top three Wes Anderson movies, and it's so subjective that I don't think that there's a bad answer or a bad order. They're all tremendous, but Asteroid City, and you know what? Here's a curveball for you. Okay, here's where you could start. Right now on Netflix, there are 4 Wes Anderson short films adapting Roald Dahl stories, which is the origin of Fantastic Mr. Fox. One of them's 45 minutes. 3 of them are 15 minutes. They're all like
easy.
They're way darker than I realized. I know Roald Dahl went pretty heavy, but these go pretty heavy. Yeah. So that's a real quick investment. You can watch them in whatever order you want, and I think they're all like magnificent. They're also weird because of the way they're shot and produced and all of that. And if you go in knowing it's gonna be weird, but I'm not sure what kind of weird.
No, it's every text, every piece of text is on the screen. Is said actively like by right. It's like any non-quoted stuff, like any descriptions. Those are all like said out loud. From what I understand.
It's you're right, because it's sort of like the logical conclusion of some of the stuff they did in Asteroid City, where it's some stage play stuff and there's a lot of meta layers to it all. And I have to acknowledge that it's pretty far up your own whoop-de-doop to be like, I'm going so many layers deep in all of this. But,
and this was coming out right around the same time that like his style, like the Wes Anderson TikToks were going off.
Yes,
and
that was also
he had a
crazy.
response to that. He had like a response to that, like, oh, it kind of makes me feel bad that that's what people think about my movies. But it's like, dude, you have the style.
It's oh boy, I wish I could come up with a good analogy as to what it's like. It's sort of
Give me that in sports world.
Yeah, I was trying to go sports,
analogy.
and I was like, I don't know. It's like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is like, oh, people only ever talk about me playing out of structure. It's like, well, yeah, man, because when you do, it's crazy, and everything else is also
it's like a system
good.
quarterback.
Right. And so I understand if you're Wes Anderson, like, well, my movies are more than the style and the color palette.
Yeah.
That's true. The substance is great, but it's also
it's what makes you iconic,
style.
like having the style.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. It's just fundamental to it all. I would say watch the Netflix ones if you want a real quick bite. Budapest is, I think, the most popular and probably the most common entry point. Do you like stop motion stuff at all? I have a way.
Yes, and I want to see Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Just watch that. Yeah, just start there. That's where I started ultimately, and I didn't realize the journey it would send me on. But Fantastic Mr. Fox is just about a perfect movie, and it is warm but meaningful in a way that is. Well, here's another little cross connection to another nerd thing I'm not actually currently finished with, so spoilers.
Okay,
but. It does something in terms of the humanizing of animal characters on a deep and tremendous level that actually burrows in
Animal Crossing.
in Dimension 20. Animal Crossing might be next. I love that too. But we're almost done with Burrow's End.
Yes.
And that we've gotten to the part where people are beginning to cry.
Yeah. Many friends of the show in that show, and I actually have only been able to get through 2 episodes of it so far.
Okay.
But yes,
they're not
Bria,
stoats. They're
Erica,
all actually they're all human beings, and they all transform in grisly fashions at the end. No, I don't know. I just made that up. Fake spoiler. But yeah, I start with Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's pretty much a perfect movie.
Awesome. I love it. Let's move on a little bit to the back to the sports world, because as much as, you know, nerd culture and sports culture has like this false binary that kind of splits it down the middle and has this wall that like keeps each other from joining, there's still so many ways to be able to be nerdy about sports.
Hell yeah.
And especially as you're a radio host, you know exactly what it's like to nerd out. And I want you to nerd out about the Kansas City Chiefs. What brought you to Chiefs fandom growing up?
I guess it was probably, I mean, it was family. My dad played football in high school, and so we have, he's still in better shape than I am, so that's something for me to figure out. But like we were a family that loved sports. I'm the oldest, and my brother played sports, and then really baseball was my first sports love. But I wasn't very good at it, and eventually football pops out. And it's like, oh wait, this sport you can like hit each other, and it's all this other stuff. So that was sort of like the very early arc for me. And then once it got to a point, really it was my freshman year in college. I started a shout out to Mid-America Nazarene University in Olathe, Kansas. It was
nice.
It's a small school, which, you know, as small schools do, has their pros and cons. One of the pros at MNU.
It sounds like the biggest school in Missouri.
You would be shocked to know. Yeah, you'd be shocked to know that it's not. But the school radio station that was there, there was nothing going on. So the director was like, "You want to start a podcast? Start a podcast." So we started a podcast, and that's when that's when the radio media side of it, I guess, came together. But I don't know. I was a sports kid. We were outdoor kids that also translated to being indoor kids and playing NFL Street 2 to grand ends, which is still a true love of mine. But it wasn't like I'm realizing I'm having a hard time answering that question because it was never a choice. Like it was just a thing that was always, sports were always there. They were always on. My family was always about it. So I was too. And then the fandom grew and evolved. And then the job opportunities opened up, and I'm just still here hugging this football.
Yeah, no, I'm obviously like, I'm very much in that same boat. I mean, I've never had a time in my life until like the last basically year and a half, 2 years where I haven't been on a team, that it's probably been its furthest from being the center point in my life. And it's still something I do every single day. I was just recently on Dirty Laundry, on the Dropout show Dirty Laundry. And there was without spoiling it for other people, there was a moment where people were asking me, were you like, did you ever have a job? And like, since college, in high school? I'm like, no, like even in high school, it was basically a job of mine. And it got to the point where I didn't even think that I didn't really even think that college sports was in my future until it was. I forget exactly what school it was, but maybe it was like one of the naval, like maybe Naval Academy or something, or some school, Air Force maybe, said like, hey, we're going to offer you a scholarship to play football at our university. I'm like, it didn't become a realized opportunity for me when I was in high school, even though we were, top 10 in the country and I was playing quarterback for that team, that it was even thinking about getting a scholarship to play college sports and move on from there and, go to the NFL was even a consideration. But it was just for like pure love of the game. It was just living it and being in that world was enough,
Yeah. Also, I can add that for most of my younger school career, I was homeschooled. Shout out to my mom.
Okay.
And so I played football on like teams that would allow homeschooled kids to join and on some of the schools nearby and all of that. So I should also point out I did spend a year at fullback, so I think we've pretty much got more or less the same.
We'll talk about some fullback technique after the show.
I will not talk much, but I'd be interested to hear you talk about it for sure.
The Chiefs don't have a fullback right now since Sherman. Yeah, there have been like 4 or 5 teams in the last like 2 years that have disbanded the fullback from their roster.
I thought I would have bet an irresponsible amount of money that Andy Reid was going to be amongst the last holdouts there. I thought for sure. But yeah, it was Sherm for several years, and then they had Michael Burton last year, and he's a Bronco now still. And this year it's a full backless roster. They've done some stuff, in some like positional versions.
It's a real shame.
Things, but
it's a real shame.
Yeah, it makes me sad actually.
Yeah, I mean there are some people who nerd out about the football. Excuse me. We'll just cut this out. There are some people who nerd out about the fullback position itself. Like you look at Twitter, there's some whole Twitter accounts that are like dedicated to posting every single fullback highlight during the week. But it's becoming shorter and shorter list. And, there have been times when the Cowboys didn't use the fullback much, and this year they did. There have been times when, this year people got, there's this big outcry when the Jets fullback got cut so that Aaron Rodgers could come off of IR, even though he wasn't even playing this year. Like, there is just some real irresponsible, disappointing activity surrounding the fullback position. And I, for one, am really just horrified by it.
Can the players union have a positional union within it? I know
that
really
there
was a little talk about that when all the running back contract stuff was really popping off this year. Like, the running backs need like a specific thing.
Yeah.
Fullbacks are an endangered species. Fullbacks need protection.
No, I mean there are far too many linebackers, tight ends.
These pretty boy tight ends. That's what I was just thinking.
I know it. And it's like, I love my tight ends. They're the direct cousin of the fullback, but they, you can tell, like, even if you don't show me their number, don't even show me the body type. If you put a tight end in the I formation and you see them lead up to a linebacker, you can just tell.
That's not a fullback. You 100% you can tell. And one of the things they did really well with Sherman was making him a legitimate weapon on that one down the sideline, little wheel route down the sideline that was just disgusting. That shouldn't be able to happen, but he could pull it off. Yeah. And now we got tight ends lining up in the I formation, and I don't respect it.
It doesn't come with the same deception.
Correct.
Because look, you want a position, you want a player at that position, at every position that's versatile, that can do a lot of good things, a lot of things really, really well. And I think when you see a tight end in that position, you're like, okay, well, there's always the possibility that person goes out for a pass and can be a threat in the passing game. When you see a fullback in that position, you're like, he kind of is, but we're not really going to worry about him. And that's when fullbacks just like go off for like 50-yard pass plays, which we'll get caught, but still it's going to be it's all about like the deception of it, because you don't expect, the 6'2", 260 guy, 6'2", 260 pound guy, to go out 30 yards and receive a pass.
Let me check my notes real quick. I believe I'm speaking to an NFL receiving touchdown haver at the moment from the fullback position.
I am. I will say, I know that you're a fan of, this is going to follow me down this road. I know you're a fan of the McElroy brothers.
Sure. Yes.
One of my first points of contact, even within that world, because they're people that I've met before. They're very, very kind people. as I told you, Clint was on the podcast recently. He's an amazing person. I think, if I'm not mistaken, cut this out if this is not true, that we have a somewhat of a mutual connection in Chris Plant.
Yes.
Yes. So Chris has become a friend of mine. Let's just talk about him
for the rest of the podcast.
Let's just talk about Chris, because Chris co-hosts a podcast with. Hi, Chris. I hope you're listening. Co-hosts a podcast with two of the McElroy brothers, Justin and Griffin, called The Besties. It's I listen to it every Friday, and it's a great erasure. And Rush Stick. I'm sorry, I was just bringing up the McElroy. But yes, it was very funny because there was one point at which they had like a call to action. It's like, hey, message us games or something, or message us like things. It was for a Rusty's episode, one of the side episodes. So I messaged both Russ and Chris saying like, hey, this would be cool. I don't even remember what it is. Russ, I don't think, responded. Chris said, wait, is this the Johnny Stanton that scored a touchdown on the Denver Broncos in 2021? Yes! I'm like, you're a sports fan? He's like, yeah, I'm a huge Chiefs fan. I'm like, oh, great. Okay. And then he's the one who sent me your direction. So you can thank Chris for that.
Thank you so much, Chris. I have talked about, I think he knows this well enough for me to admit it on a podcast, but figuring out that we were mutual listeners of each other's podcasts is not a joke, dead honest, dead serious, one of the greatest professional successes of my life. Like one of the most rewarding things. Because I've been listening to McElroy stuff forever. He might not know this. All right, Chris, if you are listening to this, I'm going to admit this now. Me and specifically Rudy, who I mentioned earlier, we started Besties way late. I mean, that should have been going on for 10 years. I have listened to every single episode of that podcast, dating back to the origin. I listened to them talk about Journey. Like that, I know how deep that rabbit hole goes. And so we at some point figured out, I think I tweeted about Besties at one point, and Chris responded with something about how he'd listened to what at the time was called Times Ours on The Athletic. Now it's the exact same podcast. It's with Casey Sports Network, now called Only Weird Games. And he mentioned that he was a Chiefs fan who had listened to that, or was a listener to that, and it was just like that to me was another moment of just worlds converging in such a rewarding way. It's like, wait, I like what you make. You like what I make? This is amazing. And that's just so
just people nerding out about each other. It's like the best thing ever.
I think most of the time that he texts me now, he sends me Chiefs stuff and I send him video game stuff. And it's like what you said earlier, where it's like, I know that you talk about video games and write about and edit about video games for a living, but I've really been enjoying Backpack Hero, and I want you to know that. Like that's where I'm at.
No, Chris is definitely somebody who I think is within that that crossover Venn diagram of nerd stuff and sports stuff. He's definitely somebody that I want to get on the podcast. Let's switch gears a little bit to something that I believe you're fairly nerdy about. You mentioned the Porg above you, and I think a close cousin, just like tight ends and fullbacks, to the Porg is the Penguin. I believe you're a big fan of penguins, right?
I am. I don't even know where that started. At some point, I've also got Piplup stuff everywhere. It's probably my favorite Pokemon, which I know is a basic answer, but it's just true.
Oh, I'm right there with you with Mudkip. Yeah.
I mean, so water type starters, they're just good.
They're great.
They're just good. Yeah. What do you want me to say? Pretend they're not sweet?
Well, Turtwig too. Turtwig is my second favorite.
Okay, my second favorite. So, have you played the more recent Pokemon games? I know you just asked about penguins and not Pokemon. We can come back to Pokemon. We'll get back to Pokemon. I figured there's enough. So,
but you grew up playing Club Penguin like I did.
Yes, you were a Club Penguin kid.
I was the freemium version of Club Penguin. I know there was ways to be able to like spend money on it, but like it was one of those things like, oh, if I'm going to be able to have access to my parents' computer, I'm going to hop on Club Penguin.
Dude, yeah. So Club Penguin and then also Neopets were my two. Those were my like browser games that just absolutely owned whatever period of my life that was. So yes, I loved Club Penguin. I loved penguins as an animal and still do continually. Because they're just weird little guys. And I like weird little guys, and that's made Pokemon make sense. It's made my love of animals generally continue to soldier on. But Club Penguin, man, they nailed it, and it really bums me out that that's just gone now.
Yeah,
because if I got to go play the Minecart Surfer game again, I feel like I had the Nintendo DS game.
I didn't even know they came out with like cartridge games. That's cool. Oh, he's turning around to look for something.
They had one. Hold on one second.
Yes. He's going to his big shelf of nerd stuff.
So over here, back on my shelf behind me.
There you
It's
go.
mostly sports stuff. This is I don't know. They're a little like mix and match. You can like pop them into pieces. I don't know. I'm guessing this was a Christmas present when I was like 12 years old. And
For the podcast listeners, that's a Club Penguin little toy that's a mix and match. He's took off its head.
Yeah, it's like an alien
in a grizzly faction.
with 3 eyes and like a little space suit. Yeah, I beheaded it and then put it together. So I think he's fine. So yeah, that is so funny, man. I played so much. My username was Yankees3, which is going back to my baseball loving childhood and the fact that I was a Yankees fan, which is really my dad's fault.
Kansas City and not a Royals fan. That's crazy.
We were in Wichita for most of that,
okay,
so
gotcha.
the Royals were so bad. It was like it like news felt like it didn't make it 3 hours out of Kansas City. It was some rough years.
Yeah, I think I was in Lincoln, Nebraska for the Royals World Series against the Giants. And that was a good time to be in Lincoln because there were a lot of Royals fans around coming out of the woodworks.
And you have the Storm Chasers there as the minor league affiliate in Omaha. So I don't know the real inner workings of Nebraska baseball fans, but I bet that was a party. It was amazing here.
You know what Nebraska is actually very good at is portmanteauing their sports. So when you have basketball, you have Nebraska ball, and then it wasn't quite as popular, but you also had baseball. I don't think that was really a thing. That was probably something I just made up.
Nebraseball. I think Nebraseball works. I think we need more sports portmanteaus or sportmanteaus.
The New York Yorkies. That's a thing.
The New Yorkies. Now we're talking about dogs. I also did you know that my family had 2 Yorkies for most of my my life, because it seems like it might be the kind of thing that
you actually had. No, I did not know that.
It literally wouldn't surprise me at this point, because you've got things now that I am nervous and excited about.
I did have a little list here. Piplup, Prinplup, Empoleon.
Yeah.
Ice Cube, Delibird, and Iron Bundle. The most recent
game changer. Yeah.
Yeah. All penguin themed Pokemon. Mm-hmm. However, none of them was what you chose for your Halloween costume this year. Instead, you chose Psyduck, a duck themed Pokemon. And I think the penguins have something to say about that. Oh, Psyduck.
This is a Psyducky, which Renee got me for Christmas.
Oh,
after
nice.
I
Very cool.
found there's some anime screenshot or something. It existed. She found one.
I love it.
I'm surrounded by Pokemon things. This is where I feel weird about my imposter syndrome. I have way too many little toys for this to be all a bit. So I do love Psyduck. I think Psyduck might be Psyduck and Grievard, the new little ghost dog.
And your dog Violet. Dressed up as that for Halloween, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We Renee made a little like paper mache kind of candle thing for it. I was really tickled.
And let's not forget your wife dressed up as a great Meowscarda. I mean, a lot of the people who are listening probably have no idea. Like Meowscarda is one of the newest final evolutions of the newest starter. Very cool magician themed Pokemon. But yes,
it evolves from Weedcat, which you've hopefully that's the origin is Weedcat, and then up and up. So she did like a DIY, like found pieces for it and like made it a costume.
Yeah.
It really looked incredible. I 5 days before Halloween was like, okay, let's do Pokemon. That's great. Mm-hmm. I gotta pick up the pace because I don't have a full body. I have a full body penguin costume, which is what part of my Twitter avatar is. That's full body penguin costume. I actually did that for Halloween. I think maybe last year. I keep dressing
and the year
up
before
as
that. I did check.
Was it really?
2 years in a row, you were. I think you were both the Batman or Batgirl and the Penguin. That you were like a literal penguin. Yeah,
that's right. I was a literal penguin. You've got a better read on my life right now than I do. That's incredible. This show's
you did commit
great.
the sin of being in the same costume 2 years in a row, though.
It's why I couldn't do it a third year. I couldn't be a penguin for a third year. So
sure.
then
but that's when you spray it blue and then become Piplup.
I could have been the jankiest Piplup you've ever seen. I could have been a literally spray painted Piplup. I did look at Piplup onesies and Psyduck onesies, but I believe the real tiebreaker was that the Psyduck one was like half as much and would get here earlier, and the Piplup one was like $90, and I was like, well, we'll see how this one goes. And so maybe that's for next year, because I do like a comfy Halloween costume when I can get away with it. Like I'm wearing this thing for a while. I'm not ready to wear a corset or anything.
That's fair. That's fair. And the last thing I'll say is I saw you wearing a Tampa Bay Lightning jersey instead of a Pittsburgh Penguins jersey. So I don't, your love for Penguins cannot be that thorough.
That's a good point too. Yeah, I've got a couple. I got a Tampa jersey and a now I guess Arizona Coyotes jersey. I got family. Okay. My sports allegiances are all kind of odd now, because family moves. I'm like, yeah, sure, I can kind of adopt this and this. But yeah, no,
But you do live in a part of the country where it's like, okay, you have a football team and a baseball team, but it's like growing up in the LA area when I was growing up. It's like, okay, well, you don't have to choose the Chargers because they're down in San Diego. It's basically not even like the same state, and you can choose whatever team you want. I just didn't end up really choosing a team. I kind of rooted for the Broncos for a little bit, kind of the Chargers for a little bit, and then I don't have a favorite team anymore because I'm in it.
Right, which is crazy. So are you from LA first? You've been all over the place.
I have been all over the place. I grew up in a suburb of LA called Burbank, and then moved down to Orange County. But in that time, and since then, it's been Nebraska for college, Las Vegas for college, Minnesota for NFL, Ohio for NFL. I spent a little bit of time in Houston, just like a month or so in Houston for the XFL preseason. So I've been to a number of different places. It
makes you very well traveled, and it makes I feel like you picked up. I knew obviously Cleveland and Nebraska, I think. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense. You found some Midwest nice along the way, like that. Yeah. You've been around it long enough to see where that comes from. So that makes sense. I'm on my heels here as a radio person, being on the wrong end of knowing everything about the other person. So I'm going to have to start. I'm going to do you have any family members who might text me a nugget before we're done?
I'll see what I can do. I'm a little too busy. I'm recording a podcast right now. What else did I have here? Have your social security number? No,
I wouldn't be surprised. Just if you find it, just get what you want, take my call.
No, let's talk a little bit about D&D. We haven't even talked about D&D yet. We've talked about the McElroy brothers, but that was from what I understand, it was your entrance into the world of Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah, it was, and I had a few friends also, almost for maybe it's the little like homeschool high school group I ended up with, but most of my friends were nerd friends, not sports friends. Yeah. I have sports friends, but most of my like real diehards from that I've been friends with now for 10 or 15 years, a lot of dorks in that group, and I love them all dearly. And so some of them had a little bit of D&D. I think I played like a Pathfinder one-off in college at one point. It honestly did not go great. It might have been the thing that delayed my eventual playing of D&D by a little bit longer.
Oh no.
This wasn't a great vibe.
It wasn't a horror story, but it wasn't, okay.
It wasn't a horror story, but it was like hour 3 and it's like, should I be having fun yet? And it's okay. But then really in earnest, going from some of the McElroy stuff to then into the Adventure Zone. That entire first arc was so up my alley that it opened up an entire way of viewing D&D that I just didn't really know was there. Like I just didn't know it existed on that level where they are openly just, either purposefully or accidentally stepping right over rules and completely forgetting they're there and just powering through for the sake of, not just for the sake of the story, but for the sake of having fun with it.
Right.
And I love board games. I love video games. I like a good rule system that keeps everything on the rails and makes you work for it and everything. But in a role-playing game that's ideally with people who you really already have a good energy with and enjoy just
you can tell what the difference is. Yeah.
Yes. And that to me seemed like, that's fun. It's great podcast listening, and I now want to do that. So I've done a tiny bit here and there, and Renee's been working on a campaign that I have seen some of the building blocks of that looks like it's going to be tremendous. And that's this is the conversation is like, we should do that right after football season. After football wraps up, they get there's football Monday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, most of the time. That's kind of all going on. But the Adventure Zone was huge. And now they did Tiny Heist with the Dropout folks and with Brennan. And we watched that, and then it was like, well, this whole Dropout. I'm also embarrassingly late to Dropout, and even everything that brings.
I feel like I was embarrassingly late to Dropout, and that was in 2020, the year they came out. And it was like, all of this stuff is there's so much out there. Like, just as much as you're in the were in or just leaving the golden age of television. It's like, okay, there's this award-winning show that you haven't even watched one episode of. It's like it's just like, you know, a TTRPG world, or, you know, actual play world, where, okay, so there's this one huge podcast that I haven't even heard the name of. It's like, of course there is, because there's something for everybody.
Right. And that's also what makes it beautiful, because that's also happening in sports left and right, you know. I mean, in terms of, like, we're literally doing a podcast, so you get it. But, like, there are so many sports podcasts, and then there are so many Chiefs podcasts, and so many specific Chiefs podcasts that really dive into the film, and Chiefs podcasts that don't take themselves too seriously. Like, you are going to find a niche within a niche within a niche. And I think it makes it harder for people, because finding the stuff that is so perfectly fine-tuned to you, finding that is harder, because it's easier to turn on one of 5 channels and just see whatever's there. Right. But the fact that we are in this, like, micro-focused, hyper-targeted kind of world is, I think, amazing, because it frees us up as people creating to do what we want, and to believe that there will be people there for it at the end. And it's great for the people that find something and it feels like it was bespoke for them, like that. Yeah, that I think is it. Maybe we're in the golden age of internet content right now.
Careful what you say, because there was a whole Twitter thing that happened in the last 2 days of, like, somebody claiming, "Oh, we're past the golden age of TTRPGs." It's like, this is like the best time to get into D&D or TTRPGs, like Pathfinder, Candela Obscura, like all these incredible games with more eyes on it than ever, and people being able to consume it in, like, 15 different ways, whether you want to listen to it or enjoy it yourself or just read about it. This is absolutely like the perfect time to get into it. And it's only growing. Like, this industry, if run correctly, will only, like, expand larger and larger, because I truly think that I would not only be, like, a better person, but especially, like, a better teammate, a better player in sports, if I had the opportunity to be able to have this hobby when I was younger. And, you know, I'm definitely going to raise my future kids on D&D and TTRPGs, and I think everybody should.
It's a great point, because also, like, it is a way to dig in and extract the theater kid within you without having to be in theater.
It makes me regret having not been in theater when I was in high school, and or, you know, what have you. Like, I was in a film class in high school. It's like, but I want to be like, I'm feeling so much, like you were saying, imposter syndrome, being on the same screen as people like Mika Burton or Matt Mercer and Persephone Valentine and all these people who are so damn charismatic, and I've, like, have training in being charismatic, and I'm like, I wish I had that same the way that you guys were raised. I want to have been raised that way. Like, obviously I had, like, I cannot, you know, consider giving up the experiences that I've had and the joy that I've had from sports and football, but like, for anything. But being able to look at other people and say, like, oh my gosh, that looks so amazing. I just want to be able to figure out how to mix those two for my, you know, incoming generations.
Yeah, but and I think that's it. And first of all, you don't get biceps like that rolling dice. I mean, it's just a trade-off that you made. I mean, right. A lot of people, you know, would love those guns. So the sweet spot there, because again, I've got, my friends are theater kids. My wife was a theater kid and still is a theater person now, and all of the ability to do that, I kind of think on some level, there is a convergence of, well, I was a sports kid, but I never had the time or the physical ability to play sports, or I would have been a theater kid, but I didn't have the time because I was playing sports, which I think is the group that we both end up being in. You were better at sports forever than I was, but just to keep making sure that's clear. But, like, you do make some choices at that point. And now, also, if you don't necessarily want to perform and remember lines in front of an audience, do a character voice with your 4 best friends.
Yes.
And see if you have fun. That's
I didn't have to be a theater kid, because I'm now a TTRPG adult. And that's, like, the best replacement that you can have. Yeah.
And the teamwork thing is such a good point, because another thing that I did improv at MNU in college, which is, again, another shout out to it being a smaller school. So there's plenty of room for all of us to get better as we went. And one of my best friends now, I did a ton of shows with, and Renee and I did a bunch of shows together. And that was an incredible experience, both for the team aspect of it and the way that you interact with your friends and working on something, but working on something that's not scripted, that is on your feet. I loved doing improv. And I've told other radio people, like, go do that, because it will make you learn how to yes and with people in a way where you're always, the point is to keep the ball rolling. The point isn't always to have the hammer that's the funny joke at the end. The point isn't always to get to the end the quickest or whatever. It's to keep this level of interest.
It's to tell a story like on your toes. Yeah.
Yes. And if you can be funny along the way, God bless you.
Right.
It's hard, but sometimes it happens, and then that dopamine hits great. But then that's achievable on a smaller scale to everybody if you create your little ecosystem that way, like with the D&D stuff. So I don't know that there is a sports equivalent. It might be like the kids that had a really good time in PE classes when you had organized sports weeks or whatever, and then play Madden and watch sports now. It's like, I wish I would have played, but I was learning an instrument, and I'm like, I wish I would have learned an instrument. Like that's the trade-off we all make.
Everybody like that's what everybody has that trade-off. Nobody gets to be everything, or else you end up, foregoing what ends up actually making you happy and be able to focus on that.
Right. And you learn and adjust that as you go. And I think we've both figured out there's stuff from that nerd side that we weren't tapping into as early or as often as makes us happy now to do it at that frequency and with that depth and enthusiasm. And I don't know, that's the cool thing about being a person that contains multitudes, as literally everyone does. Tap into that and realize you've got some growing to do, and you find stuff you like. I think it's awesome.
Hell yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're about ready to wrap up here, but there's a couple things that I want to do before we're done. First thing I want to do is, first off, thank you for being on this episode of Athletics Check, being one of the first people on the show, having you a professional at what I'm trying to do, being on the show is an honor.
Thank you for having me. I'm dead
absolutely.
serious. It's going to sound like empty flattery, but like I have been excited with everything I have seen you begin to dip your toe into, because it means that little Venn diagram is getting bigger and that little cross section's growing, and you're bringing more people to it. And I think that rules. So thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. You don't happen to have a set of dice on you, do you?
I don't.
Okay.
Boy, I feel like a real dunce.
No. I should have warned you. It's my fault.
Want me to get a roller? I can pull up a roller.
Sure, absolutely. That'd be perfect. But before we do anything with dice, the one thing I want to ask you is, after this hour of talking about things that you don't necessarily get to express on a day-to-day basis as much as you do about sports, would you update your nerd to jock ratio? Do you feel like that number has changed at all?
I'm surprised to realize we are already just about at an hour, and I've had a great time doing all of this. So that's all pointing in that direction. I think if I locked in my life earlier at 60-40 sports to nerds, but my soul at 50-50 earlier, I would be happy to just lock in 50-50.
Sure.
Because I think I feel like that's a good place to be. Maybe it's even aspirational. Maybe it's even a
goal.
It
doesn't need to be time. It doesn't need to be like time spent. I think if it's what's in your soul, then that's what matters.
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and lock in my 50-50 soul balance then. And I don't know if that ends up officially changing. I don't know if you're keeping score, if you got a spreadsheet or whatever. But I'm going to say, if you want to lock in my 60-40 as the beginning and give me 50-50 now, I'll take that.
I'll consider that a win in the column. Okay,
you
perfect. Well, I would. We just started this tradition last episode with Iffy Wadaway, so he is the first person to have his number in the rafters. Would you like your number in the rafters of the Athletics Check podcast, to have your number retired? No, you're going to roll it on D100, and nobody will be able to share that number with you.
Okay, yes, I would absolutely love to do that. Number of sides. Let me go change this to 100.
100.
Okay. What did
so
Iffy end up with?
Iffy is with an 87, good tight end number. He's got the tight end body type. So if you just can avoid 87, that'd be great.
If I roll an 87, I haven't clicked yet. If I roll an 87, does the show just end?
You don't get your number retired. That's all.
Oh, that would be so devastating.
No, okay. We'll just reroll.
Okay, I got number of dice 1, number of sides 100. The button has been clicked. 39.
39. That's a good fullback number. That's a good fullback number right there, or a DB. I'll take it. Absolutely.
It's not. I don't think it's a good DB number, and I'm not a good DB.
It's not a good DB number.
We're gonna say 39 is the fullback within me.
I love it.
We didn't even talk about Rashard Mendenhall's tweet. We could do. You want to do another? You want to do another hour?
We'll pass on that.
Oh, fine.
I'll let you talk about it on your podcast. The last thing I would like for you to do is change that on your dice roller. Change that 100 to a 20 because I'm going to ask you to roll an athletics check.
Fantastic. Let's see where I land. That's a 4.
Oh, well, it's okay because number 4 is my favorite number. It's the number. I'm John Stanton IV. I wore number 4 in high school when I was a quarterback and in college when I was a quarterback. So I'll give you. I would say it's a low DC. You just barely were going to step over the goal line, but you fell on the 1, giving up your touchdown to Jalen Hurts. Unfortunately,
yes, we're getting tush pushed. Yep.
But a 4 I think is completely serviceable. We were able to avoid the dreaded 1, which is all that matters.
Yeah, that would have been crushing. A 4 feels low, but honestly, maybe true to where I'm at right now. Maybe that 4 is the motivation. If I get jacked, can I come on the show again in like a year and reroll?
Absolutely. You have an open invitation to come back on this show. I'll just tell you that.
I'm gonna start doing some push-ups. I'm gonna see if we can.
We'll get that modifier up. We'll get that modifier up to a 5 or 6.
I feel like I'm like a +2 right now, and so if I got a 6, I've still failed any check other than like hop over this stick.
No, that's okay. You're good. All right. Well, for all of you Patreon subscribers, you will have the opportunity to watch Josh or to listen to Josh play in a little micro D&D game that I prepared for him. Josh, your experience with playing has been limited to a couple little tiny one-shots. Hopefully, I'm able to match the the excitement that you've had from the Adventure Zone and all this stuff. But I'm not going to put myself at too high of a bar to hit. But
my bar is on the ground, and I just tried to jump over it, and I tripped. So you're good. I can't.
Perfect.
Wait.
Awesome. Well, if you are a Patreon subscriber, please stick around. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, consider please following on Patreon, subscribing on Patreon. But in the meantime, again, Josh, thank you so much for being on. And for all of you listening at home, roll me an athletics check.
All right, thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to rate it and leave us a review. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else podcasts can be found. Don't forget, we do have a Patreon in which we talk to each of our guests about playing Dungeons & Dragons, and I run them a little adventure. I hope you guys do enjoy that if you are a Patreon subscriber. Audio editing and music by the incredible co-host Travis Reeves. Video production and editing by Frank Janish. And I'm your host, Johnny Stanton IV. To find out more about what I do, check out my website, stantoniv.com. This has been an effing funny production. We'll catch you next time, but until then, can you roll me an athletics check?